Hi, everybody. Welcome to this month's Leadership Book of the Month. We are going to dive into Hidden Potential by Adam Grant pretty soon. Brett is going to join me pretty soon. He's having some technical difficulties, so I'll watch to see when he comes in, but it's 4 o'clock Central Time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to this broadcast. The Leadership Book of the Month exists so the leaders of tomorrow who want to invest in themselves today can do that by investing a little bit in your time. And then by discussing some of these top books, we hope to give you some tips along the way and help you decide if it's something that you want to read and spend the time on. Let's see, we'll dive in. So today's book is, today's book is called Hidden Potential, The Science of Achieving Greater Things. And it's by Adam Grant. And before I go on, I see Brett is back. So I'm going to see if his tech is all set. How's it going? Oh, yay.
Had to migrate to the cell phone here, a little technical difficulty.
Oh, okay. Well, that works, though. We can hear you and see you.
Good.
Yay. Well, I just was about to do the introduction of the book, so should we dive in?
Yeah, go ahead here. I've got a few updates and a few things, but yeah, this is a good one.
Well, go ahead and do your update, and if you can get closer to a mic, that would be great, too.
Okay. Yeah, just good afternoon, everybody here. Thanks for joining us. Obviously, my partner in crime, Kelly, she introduced herself, but author, consultant, adjunct, podcast host, keynote speaker. I was trying to think of all the things I could give you for titles, Kelly, and it kind of just went on and on and on. So that's really awesome. We got another great episode put together today for the listening audience, and I get so excited about this month's content. There's so many things here that just kind of resonate with who I am. And I wanted to start with, the why we're here. And it's really pretty simple. We settled on this very early in one of our jam sessions about what's our compass, our North Star, our why. And it's really, our reason for being here. We do this obviously kind of pro bono, but it's to inspire investor or leaders of tomorrow to invest in themselves today. And, I don't know exactly how groundbreaking or revolutionary that was when we actually coined it, but, it's stuck, and here we are. I think 3 years going on almost 4, and we still go back to that. So, our listeners know my background in sales, and I'm fascinated, when the roles are reversed and I'm the one buying versus selling. So case in point, we just finished a new roof on our house, and the young guy, it was due to a hailstorm, and I had this privilege of connecting with the salesman. And as a seller, I'm always observing other salespeople and kind of their techniques and their process and their training. And the guy just had a phenomenal pitch. I just loved what he did. He was so put together, well rehearsed and all of that. And that kind of got me intrigued. And I asked him a couple of questions, about goals and aspirations and training. And that was kind of my opener to him telling me that he's paid 100% on commissions. And he shared with me, that from the months of January, February, and March, that he had no cash flow, and he was working on a side hustle, kind of a secondary business. So we started talking about mentoring and SCORE and the Leadership Book of the Month Club and all those things. And I told him, I said, all of those things came about from you just making a professional sales pitch, and it kind of opened up the possibility of a mentoring relationship. So I always think those things are just fascinating. And then the hook for everybody on the call, of course, today is the fact that the Leadership Book of the Month Club and what it means in terms of personal development, kind of becomes that calling card that we're able to always fall back to. So obviously we ended the conversation with, here's a link to the podcast. So I hope that he jumps on or has an opportunity to see our titles and maybe look at our reading list.
Oh, that's awesome. And I forget while we're live to look at the comments, because I get so excited about the material too, and making sure we don't talk, because we could talk for like 3 hours about each book. So trying to not do that. So if you're joining live, we appreciate that. And you're welcome to post comments on LinkedIn, or I don't know if the ones from YouTube will come through to the broadcast right now, but if they do, we would love to see anything that you want to chime in and share from your experience reading the book, or any questions that you would have for us. And if we miss your comment during the live, then we'll watch the LinkedIn post and the YouTube post and be happy to answer afterwards, or feel free to email us too. Yeah, this book came out in 2023, and so a lot of people have read it already, and he's sold millions of copies of his books. I saw a number, 35 million. Yeah, and I can't remember. Okay, that was for his TED Talks. He has several TED Talks. He's one of the leaders in that, and those have been viewed by 35 million. He's probably sold more than 35 million books, I think. His Adam Grant is the author, And he is a professor of management and psychology at Wharton at Penn. And he was the youngest tenured professor when he earned tenure. And he's been ranked the #1 professor there. And that's pretty accomplished with how big that school is. Let's see, his other book, Think Again, was the one right before this, Originals and Give and Take. So all of those are well known. You might have read those as well. He has 2 podcasts on the TED series or TED format platform. Work Life is one and Rethinking is another. So if you're interested in that, actually, and I have a banner with the author. You can find out more about him at adamgrant.net. And links to all of his ways to learn from him and listen to him and watch videos, and all the things are over there. One thing I did notice, and we talk about this over the years, he did have a job in publishing out of undergrad or out of grad school. He went to Harvard for undergrad and got a PhD in organization psychology from Michigan. So he did have a job in publishing, and then for a couple of years, and then he went into academia. So he's been in academia for a pretty long time. So he hasn't held corporate roles or senior level roles like most of our listeners are either at those roles now or on their way to those roles. Like I've held those roles, you're holding that role now, and have held that in other organizations too. So we prefer to have authors who have the firsthand experience of what our listeners are going to face in their challenges. But he does real research and actually talks to real people, and is very highly regarded in his techniques. So that's one of the reasons I keep him, I was going to say in my back pocket, but I keep him handy. Let's see, he shares a lot of his personal experience. I thought it was really interesting that he was a magician and then a diver, and he shares a lot of that experience. The reason that we picked this book, even though it had come out in 23, not that that's a long time ago, but you know, with so many things changing right now with AI and the new demands on leadership and what the different generations need in their employers, what he emphasizes in here is how you help people grow. And that is what people are looking for right now. They're looking for or kind of expecting that their companies are going to help them grow and reach their goals. So this is one of the reasons that it was interesting. And also because organizations are facing talent gaps. So this is a way to find hidden treasures, diamonds in the rough, he calls it, to find some of those hidden treasures inside your own company. It's also aligned with our mantra of helping the leaders of tomorrow develop. It speaks directly to leaders and managers of any level, I think, can learn from this, but it also is great for an individual. So don't think that if you don't have direct reports that it doesn't apply to you, because it still could. So that's all that I was going to say about the introduction, and I can't wait to dive in. And for this one, he wrote it in 3 sections. So I think we'll just take each section as it goes and share what was your favorite part of that section, and then I'll share one and kind of take it from there. How does that sound, Brett?
Yeah, I've got so much content to share. This was, as you said, was a great book. I want to add to what you said. I agree with people with direct reports, without direct reports. The part that I would add on to that is parenting. I kept thinking about all the concepts in the book and how they apply to parents. And no disrespect to anybody who's doing the fast track, the double income, no kids thing, but there's so much that applies in this book to the culture and what you do as a parent and leading your family. So, and we'll unpack that as we get going.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, the first part, so he talks a lot about, it's called Hidden Potential, the science of achieving greater things. So the science, and he's an academic, so he includes a lot of research in here. But the first part is about character, and to grow and uncover your hidden potential, or that in others, it comes down to character. And in that section, he talks about discomfort and absorbing and perfectionism and all kinds of things. So you want to share one of your favorite points from that section?
Sure. And I'm going to set the stage. Consider that each of us are in different, and we all go through at different stages in our lives, right? Then overlay that with several of the concepts that we're going to talk about today. And some of you, maybe in your 20s, you're early in your career, you may or may not have started your family. And so then the question actually is, how does hidden potential apply to you? The next stage obviously is maybe in your 30s. You've got a young family, you've got direct reports. Again, how does hidden potential apply to you? You get to your 40s, you're considering your next career plateau, maybe making a change, business or career. Kids are now in high school. Again, how does hidden potential apply to you? And then much like Kelly and I in our 50s, still very motivated and energized to continue contributing and focus on applying, the assets as well as enriching, those in your circle. Again, expanding our network. And question again, how does hidden potential apply to you? So what I found fascinating is that Grant's concepts apply to each one of those examples in a very detailed and very easy to comprehend apply format. We talked about him being an academic. The book doesn't read like an academic book. I mean, it reads like somebody, as Kelly pointed out, has real world experience. So, and you're going to hear me promote the book. By the time we get to the end of this, there's no mistake in that. I'll be very pro with 2 thumbs up on this one. So I'm one of those people who read the book
and share on that, on his style too. I really like that he told stories. And so the research was more like a story, and then the data came in, but it wasn't, it wasn't all about the mechanism of the data and of the research. That's all linked in the back if you want to look that up, which I didn't because I liked the stories. But okay, so what's one of your favorites?
It makes things, it makes it more human. So my point, I'm one of those guys who reads the book cover to cover. I even read the inside of the jacket, the back jacket, the prologue, and the epilogue, which in this case was kind of interesting because there were some great nuggets in the prologue. So the prologue focused on a chess team from Harlem called the Raging Rooks. And basically what happened was the impact of the mentor and a coach had on them. And you wouldn't actually think that a young group of high school kids from Harlem would take up chess as a game, but they did, and they did well, and they won on the national stage. So again, if I'm a parent, I'm considering the impact that you not only have on your family, but the opportunity that you have to impact other families. And I always try to use real life examples of how maybe I live that in my life. I taught Sunday school for several years. I think from the time my girls were 3 or 4 all the way up until they were in high school. And it was that opportunity impact. I coached softball. Again, it not only impacted my family, but lived out my values as well as impacted a lot of other people. So if you're early in your career, think about how you surround yourself both personally and professionally. And in other words, are you being influenced and or mentored, right? A lot like this young gentleman that led this team from Harlem. And if you're not being challenged in both aspects, change your environment so you have that choice. So, both of our girls are now grown, they're adults, so I don't get that hands-on touch like I did, but they still call me for advice. So I would tell you that as a parent, I likely had unrealistic expectations, and they would probably both tell you that that was true, but they're better for it because we challenged them. And we'll talk about that at another point in the book about setting goals and expectations. So, outside of the largest corporations, people like Xerox and such, where they have internal training, parenting and in business, we're left to make it up on our own, right? We learn by experience, by making mistakes, and then we course correct. Grant uses that term. He calls it scaffolding, and that's really kind of providing structure. And many of us, at least in my opinion, are kind of left to figure it out without the benefit of scaffolding, and parenting is largely one of those things. So what's the point? I'm a believer, and you guys can disagree and agree, but in setting the highest possible standards, AKA making chess champions out of disadvantaged kids in Harlem. So, and I'm convinced, and I could give you case study after case study that applies to me personally, where setting those unrealistic standards delivered the best possible results.
Yeah, I love that too. And is it this book, or I read so many, so I can't remember, but I think it might have been in here where he talked about if you set this goal, you want your company to make $40 million, and that's a big, huge stretch goal, but you make 30 million, that's still more than if you just set the 2% increase over last year.
Absolutely.
So high, and you're still going to come out. But the Harlem chess team story, where I equated that was to teams in business. So when you put a new team together, they might be, launching a new product or trying to recover from a mistake, win over a customer that they've had trouble with. And the point of that story was, it didn't matter. They were capable, and people might not have thought they were, but they realized that they were capable. So it came down to their self-belief. But then one of the best points of this whole book was it also came down to them believing in each other. And that was the whole thing that the leader brought. And that was in the military example, and in lots of other examples we can get back to. But yeah, I love that one. Another one of mine in this section. Oh gosh, I got so many good points.
Well, while you're looking, I want to add to that. Not
Yeah.
only did they believe in themselves, but they believed in themselves because their mentor or their chess coach believed in them and gave them an
Right.
opportunity, and really almost broke down barriers and took away the I can excuse. And rather than saying
Mhm.
I can, it was I can. Rather than saying I won't, it was I will. And just simply the influence and the impact of a leader that believes in you as a team and the profound impact and effect that has. And again, back to what's it matter to you? What are your leaders doing for you, and what are you doing as a leader? Do you believe in
Yeah.
your team? Do you convince them? Do you inspire them? Do you motivate them? Do your leaders inspire and motivate and convince you? That there's it just the takeaway from the book, and it just kept coming back to it again. We can accomplish wonderful things, tremendous things, just by simply having the right mindset.
Yeah. Did you ever have a teacher or a manager or boss or somebody that believed in you and in a way differently than you believed in yourself through something that that they helped you believe in yourself again, or through something
Not,
new?
not so much not believe, but I mean, I always question I always question my ability, and I would get into these situations. So let's call them stretch opportunities,
Yeah.
where what, maybe that's not something that I've done before, and I have to double down, right? I've got to invest in myself through education, research, and saying, and it's the classic, and I think he even referenced in the book, Dr. Carol Dweck, the growth
Yeah.
mindset, and think about it, right? There's people that just demonstrate that again and again and again. And as observers, I'm always observing people. I call that reading the room, whatever you want. And you're just saying, why is it the same people that always achieve great things? Why is it the same people?
Hmm.
And it's mindset, right? And you say to yourself, am I achieving? Am I overachieving? Am I reaching my goals? Am I breaking through? Am I achieving greater heights? And if you're not, there's an opportunity for self-awareness, self-reflection, the man in the mirror moment, whatever term you like to use. Just say, let's change your mindset.
Yeah.
And to Kelly's point, if your goal is 40 million and you achieve 30 million, 30 million is still pretty significant. It's that moonshot where I came up a little bit short, but I
Yeah.
accomplished a whole lot more than I never shot at all.
Yeah. I thought of several mentors that I had that have helped me when I was doing something new or afraid to take on something. And but one was the principal of my high school, and yeah, Stuart Bittner was his name. He passed away. He was a bike rider. He rode his bike all around, and he passed away in a bike accident a few years ago. But I always think about him like, okay, he believed I could be the president of National Honor Society. I can do this thing, like that was when you have something that you don't think you can do, and then somebody believes in you, and then you do it. The next time that happens, you believe in yourself a little sooner, and you aren't as afraid to try something else. So it's good to
success
remember
naturally
those
breeds
experiences. Yeah.
success naturally breeds confidence, and the more success
Yeah.
you have, the more confident you become, the more likely you are to stretch and try something bigger.
Yeah.
And the whole point, in for the readers, right, is pick up this book, right? And I'm going to say it again and again. You can't help but come away inspired and motivated and challenged and invigorated. The book has just got that kind of content, and I'm sure somebody's listening, going, "That's silly, Brett. How could a book be that impactful?" I don't know about you, Kelly, but when I read content like this, I mean, I'm ready to go run through a brick wall. I mean, I was just that inspired by this book and the case studies and the stories of people that have accomplished wonderful things. And I'm constantly asking myself, if they can do it, why can't I?
Yeah. Well, I'm always inspired too, but I look for how is this book different from other ones? And so he does make points that are different. He shares research that is different. And he has some tips that I don't see in a lot of other books, like focusing on helping your team. It's and your coworkers at work. It's not just about that they like each other and that they get to know each other and like each other. And there's that whole spectrum. It's that they realize how much they can succeed if they are unified together, if they depend on each other. And the way he framed all of that in this book throughout was really interesting and different than I'd seen before. So that was one of my favorite things throughout. And he touched on it in the first part, but he talks about perfectionism and getting stuck. The second part is about motivation, but I'm not a procrastinator, so it gets my attention when I do procrastinate. And I mean, it's frequent that I do, but in general, that's not my thing. So if I see something's on my to-do list for a couple weeks and I look and say, okay, why am I not doing that? it gets my attention. And sometimes it's some, squirrel. So I can put it aside, or sometimes I need to create a project plan and just get it done. So,
Right.
yeah, but that's understanding what that is for you is would be helpful. Okay, in the interest of time, let's go on to part 2 is on the structures of motivation. So transforming the grind into growth. And entrepreneurs, he talks a lot about entrepreneurs and how character and skill matter. And so does he talked about determination, discipline, and being pro-social, and the difference that all 3 of those made in some of the examples in the stories, and getting unstuck, and then defying gravity, which we sort of talked about. What are some of your favorites, or what's a favorite point from that part?
I focused on this idea of the practice being actually more enjoyable than the playing part. And he spent quite a bit of time detailing some of the really accomplished performance people, 𝗃𝙀𝙀𝗺 and some athletes, and how much time they put into. And I don't remember exactly what section it was in, but they talked about the repetitive nature to become a master, right? You have to do something 10,000 times before you can be, and that's out there, right? I mean, that's not any new material, but you think about that, and the takeaway is, these people, are they better than the average person? Sure, they probably have some material gift, or they were born, with some genetic benefit. But the bottom line is, they demonstrate extreme discipline, and discipline is that thing that separates most people, right? Either the discipline or lack thereof. And practices can be a form of, I called it a form of learning or personal development. And then I started to equate reading with practicing. And just saying, hey, by reading, I'm really exercising my mind. I'm acquiring a new skill. I'm obviously sharpening the steel, the edge, whatever cliche you like to do. But the point for all of us to grow and to improve is we have to practice. And again, discipline, commitment, and dedication. So I know they sound pretty trite, but I am really focused on that. And then I don't want to spoil a book for everybody, but he deals the habits of these athletes and performers and the hours of dedication that they put into it. And oftentimes, the most challenging aspect is just to get started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just stepping up. He also talks, this is in the section, he talks about the scaffolding, and to stay motivated and to grow, where people think it's going to be, step 1 is hard, and then it'll just get easier, and I'll thrive by the end. But no, he talks about when people plateau. This was a little bit different to me as well. Or new, the way he worded it was new to me. The plateaus mean you just need to look for a different way to grow. But people get discouraged as if this is it. This is as far as I'm going to run, or as fast as I can go, or as high as I can hike. A few examples of people hiking different Mount Kilimanjaro was one, and Everest was another one. But when you plateau, you learn something new, try something different, talk to mentors, create your own playbook to move forward, but you might go backward first. And so don't be afraid of that when you take a step back, or you might not be as successful. He talked about the NBA teams. When the superstar player is injured, the teams suffer a little bit, but then when the player comes back, they're better than they were before the guy left. And that's because they gelled as a team differently. They figured out a different way to move forward while the player was gone. And so same thing for us as individuals. And so it helped me think about, don't get discouraged when you reach a plateau toward your goals or toward learning something. Recognize when that plateau happens, and maybe sit with it for however much time you want, but don't let that be the end. You decide. There's a lot of different steps you can take to move forward, and pick something else, and you might go back, and don't be afraid of that, and you'll come out ahead. He talked about resilience in that way too. But I loved that whole point.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, he talked a lot about musical performers who they continue to tackle hard pieces, hard things, and they don't always come out the best. But then we go back to that idea of 10,000 repetitions to be a subject matter expert. They will eventually conquer that challenging piece. But if they never take the endeavor, they won't. And he spent a little time talking about not necessarily the quantity of practice, and being able to step away, and knowing that stepping away gives you an opportunity to refocus and re-energize and come back at it, refresh. So tons of great material in that chapter.
And the Yo-Yo Ma, he said, has parameters for how often he practices or how many hours a day he practices. And he's obviously one of the best. But the not being afraid to look foolish or to make mistakes was a big thing throughout too. So that's how you're going to learn more. But if our ego keeps us in, I'm the boss, so I can't make a mistake. I have to look the best, or I don't want to look foolish in front of my peers, or my team depends on me, so I don't want to look like I don't know something. So all these different things can get in our heads that cause us to not want to try something new or want to minimize what we do. So he really encourages people to start before you're ready and not worry about looking foolish as you're learning. And he ties that all into motivation, so you don't get discouraged along the way. Let's see. Oh my gosh, so many good things. Teaching, all kinds of great things. He talks a lot about coaching and about
you hit that one. Do you have the cartoon that you can put up?
I do, yeah.
Well, and
I just learned how to do
it. Chapter 7, there it is. Yeah. So yeah. Chapter 7 talked a little bit, and it was titled "Every Child Gets Ahead." And when I read that, I obviously was a knockoff of Every Child Left Behind, but it focuses on the Finnish school system in Finland, of course, and what sets them apart in terms of function and extraordinary results, and what they've achieved over time, both and sustained results. So the text detailed the value of reading, which that's why we've got this picture up on the screen right now. And obviously, for those of you who have listened to us multiple times, you know and I'm going to speak for Kelly, but you know where we both fall on that continuum. I mean, we're both reading multiple books a month, and then so I really focused on this cartoon. You look at the family, and I think it's a mother and her child on the left, and the child is on the cell phone, the mother's on the cell phone. And then on the right, obviously the mother has a book and the child has a book. And the cartoon there, the balloon says, what do you do to motivate your child to read? Well, obviously the parent is demonstrating, the optimal behavior. And the book went into detail in chapter 7, the text, about making books the cornerstone of, dinner time conversations, trips in the car, all of these kind of things, visiting libraries. And again, I don't want to make this about me, but my daughter and I were both in Boston on a trip here last month, and we spent literally a half a day at the Boston Library. I mean, I was reading the book and thinking, my gosh, it's as if they followed me or something. It was just crazy. But, I just think it's incredible. So again, how does this apply to you, right? Are you reading? Are you investing in yourself? If you're a parent, are you demonstrating that behavior? Are you requiring that behavior of your kids? What are you giving as books to friends? I mean, I literally gave out 3 copies of Hidden Potential. Thank God for Amazon, because you just jump on it and it's done. And I literally on Saturday, I sent out 3 copies of Hidden Potential to people. And as I'm reading it, I'm texting people texts from the book saying, this is you, this is you, this is you. And it inspired me, obviously. But my whole point is there's another opportunity being demonstrated in the book for us to do some self-reflection and just say, am I living out these values? And if I'm not, it's really on me to change that, to make a change or adopt those values. The path to success, I don't think it's as difficult and challenging as people often think it is. We really can repeat and model some of the behaviors of successful people in the past, and more than likely we'll achieve similar results.
Yeah, and if you want your kids to be successful, and or your team that reports to you or your peers, be the role model. So the mom on the right is reading a book. The mom on the left and the kid on the left are on their phones, on their gadgets. So obviously we all have to be on our phones sometimes, but maybe do you have to be on it as often as you are? So food out there. So the first part of the book is about character and how character contributes to allowing yourself to be uncomfortable, and how to absorb. And then the second part is on motivation, and then the third part is on systems, and that's where the reading and the seeking knowledge and all of that comes in. He talks about scaffolding again there. Let's see, what were some of my, one of my favorite points was in that section toward the end, I think, about the diamonds. And this was like right at the very end, one of the last pages, about the diamond in the rough. And I don't remember if we've talked in here, but I know I say it a lot to clients. I don't like the term imposter syndrome. The word syndrome makes it seem like it's this big giant thing that is so huge. And he expressed how I feel about it, that it's just a thing and you're trying something new. That doesn't mean you're a failure or an imposter or less than. It's just something different. And so he talked about staying confident through all of that and looking for the reasons that you should be confident. So not like blowing sunshine in your face, but looking for that that reason. He says, it feels like other people are overestimating you, but it's more likely you're underestimating yourself. So they've recognized a capacity for growth that you can't see. So when other people believe in you and you like those people and respect those people, how about you trust them? And then your confidence will get back up where it needs to be. So it doesn't need to be a big syndrome. Don't make it worse than it needs to be. That's my thought on that section. My soapbox.
There you go.
Anything else on that section for you?
You know, I spent a lot of time in the beginning of the book. I had a comment here about interviewing and hiring and firing and coaching. I'll share that with the team. So I was finding interesting is what attracts a candidate to a given opportunity, and then obviously the employer to a candidate. You know, and it's commonly accepted that, you know, associates follow a leader. You know, we always say that you don't quit a job, you quit a leader, and that the team exists, you know, within a business. So you guys know I've talked about my daughters a lot. One of my daughters works for Deloitte, and she constantly is telling me about how she loves her managers, she loves her partners, she loves everybody on her team. And, you know, Deloitte is, I think, 60,000 plus employees, and all she's focused on is the functionality and the ecosystem within her little team there. And that's true. So, you know, back to the thread about being a team. So I would tell every candidate, and I truly believe this, that, and when I hired them, the data would say that you're in a position 5 to 7 years. And so my commitment or my hook, in particularly for the candidates that I wanted, I would say, you know, over that 5 to 7 years, my commitment to you is I'll prepare you so in 5 years when you go on the interview, you're ready to get the job. And then, you know, my commitment from you and my expectation of you is that you give me 110% every day in your personal best. So he writes in chapter 2 about being a human sponge. And, you know, it's easy for people, his quote is, it's easy for people to be critics or cheerleaders. A critic sees a weakness and attacks your worst self. A cheerleader sees your strengths and celebrates your best self. A coach sees your potential and helps you become a better vision of yourself. And that part struck me, with so many parts did. But I was a contributor on a team, or I had a contributor actually, and he affectionately referred to me as coach. And he was from Long Island, and he kind of had that New York, New England kind of accent. So every time he said it, it had that dialect. And I never really appreciated it in the moment, but it was a moniker or a label of affection by him calling me coach. And, you know, my oldest daughter, I've talked to her about her a lot. Of course, she reads about as much as I do. And on a recent trip to Boston, we were both reading. I was reading a book, she was reading a book, and everybody reads differently. You know, I'm one of these guys, I'm dog-earing things, and I'm sending out notes to people about the book. And I call it clunky reading because I don't go through a book very quickly. And she looked at me, she said, Dad, you know, how do you ever get through a book? And I said, you know, everybody's got their own style. That just happens to be how I do it. So interestingly, I still stay connected with many of my former employees, which I think is so fascinating. Some of them I fired, some of them left for other opportunities. You know, some of them got promoted, but for whatever reason, you know, we formed a bond and we still stay connected. And I was using the quote or a reference to Mark O'Donnell's People Dare to Build an Intentional Culture. And he says, you know, I loved you enough to find you a better position suited to your skill set. So what's the point? You know, who are your coaches, right? Who are you coaching? You know, are you coaching or criticizing? Again, a coach finds potential, gives you encouragement, whereas, you know, a critic or a cheerleader, you know, they're encouraging or they're critiquing. But are you a coach? You know, do you see weaknesses or do you see potential? You know, there's a call to action here of raising your level of self-awareness and say course correctiveness, or, you know, be a coach, not a critic.
Yeah, that's so good. And look for those opportunities to bring out the best in other people. But if they're not fit for your team, they're not contributing, they're not into it, whatever, you know, maybe they were great for 5 years and now they're not, and there's other things going on, you know, try to work with people and figure all of that out. But it does not honor people to keep them in the organization where they're not getting picked to be on any project teams, they're not learning the latest technology, and then someday they're going to leave on their own or not, and then they're not going to have any skills. So that does not honor people. It's better to figure out a way to move them out and move them forward with honor instead. I had a conversation about that with a client this week that needs to make some of those kind of decisions. But this reminded me of a high school that I know about in Memphis, and the cross country, or the coach of the basketball team also coached cross country, and he recognized a kid that was on the basketball team was not good at basketball, and he needed to be cut, I think like sophomore year or something. But he encouraged the kid to go out for cross country. So the kid went out for cross country and was fantastic, and then ended up getting a scholarship to a really, really good university for cross country. Yes, a really, really good one. And then was on the Olympic team and for cross country, or for like distance running or something. So, but if he had stayed on basketball because the coach didn't want to hurt his feelings, he never would have figured out he could be an Olympian and take that dream further. So people today want their management to see more in them, help them see it in themselves, because people are getting beat up all the time. So help them see it in themselves. Life is stressful. So see it in yourself, help other people see it, and look for ways to bring out the best in people. That is kind of
when you interview for an opportunity or go for a job, you know, it's not a bad thing to just say, hey, how can you help me grow? What opportunities do you have to develop my skill set? How will I be better having taken this position or joined this team in 3 years and 5 years? You know, every job, and I truly believe this, every job we have until we get to the end is the job that's setting us up for the next job. So, and that's part of you. It's on you personally, right? It's not, well, we talk a lot about L&D, learning and development, training and development, whatever term you like to use. You know, training is what a business is obligated to give you to be able to perform the job that you have. Development is what you take upon yourself or surround yourself with that prepares you for the job that you want. So, and again, that's a little bit of being our own self-advocate. No one will ever advocate as well for us as we will for ourselves. We just have to be strong enough and determined enough and have the vision to be able to do that, advocate for ourselves.
And that's right. Have the vision. Know what you want your life to be. That's something I teach at Rockers still in the MBA program, and strategic career management, and coach a lot of clients on that as well. Because if you don't have a vision for your own life, you're cross your fingers and hope cool things happen, you know, or your bosses are not thinking 100% of the time all day about what your life could be. That's kind of how he ends too. The most meaningful growth is not building our careers, it's building our character. Success is more than reaching our goals, it's living our values. And there's no greater accomplishment than unleashing hidden potential. So, so we always end with, would you recommend this book, Brett?
Well, you know, as you guys can sense, I mean, I'm a big fan of this book, and I'm certainly going to recommend it. I've already committed this week, and I'm going to revise my top 25, and this is definitely going to go on it. It'll be posted on the Voyage website, so get that one there. So, you know, this is one of those conversations, as Kelly probably would agree, you know, we could talk for probably 2 more hours on this one. It's just that good. It, you know, way beyond and longer than our personal or our normal podcast. So we didn't even get into R.E. Dickey, you know, a Cy Young.
I know.
You know, he was in the minor leagues for 13 years, finally made the majors and was a Cy Young winner. You know, we didn't touch on the Golden 13, which is the first class of African Americans to complete the Naval Officer Basic Course. And what was particularly interesting about them, and this was a time when those opportunities were often closed to African Americans, many of them, and virtually all of them, went on to phenomenal careers, presidents of universities and judges and CEOs, just simply by being given the opportunity in the Naval Officer Basic Course. You know,
But it was how they worked together. It wasn't just being given the opportunity. It was,
they all relied on each other.
They came together in a unique way. And so if we can create that special connection with our teams, that's what makes a difference in a successful team now.
You know, Andre Sugart was the guy who led the rescue mission of rescuing 33 miners in Chile. You know, phenomenal story. Jose Hernandez was the son of migrant farm workers who rose to the level of being an astronaut after multiple rejections. Allison Levin scaled Mount Everest not once but twice. The first time she came up 300 feet short of the summit.
God. Could you imagine 300 feet?
Yeah, and then again to tackle it a second time. So, you know, it's one thing to scale Everest one time, and she did it twice, and she wasn't a professional guide or anything like that. But, you know, just inspiring stories, one right after the other. So, and as you can tell, I was pretty pumped up and pretty motivated. So hopefully that you can take kind of the actionable items and then obviously put them into action. But I'm obviously a huge fan. So 2 thumbs up for me, kind of a mic drop sort of book. I'm expecting Kelly's going to share the same. Our
Yeah.
title for next month is How Leaders Can Inspire Accountability by Michael Sims. We talked a little bit about release dates. I did look that one up in prep for our meeting today, our call, September 21. So still very current, still very contemporary, still very on point, and the Amazon reviews are 4.7. So very, very excited to start on that one with you in October, Kelly. But I got to give a lot of credit to Kelly, because she puts the most of the work into selecting the titles, screening the books, and kind of putting our schedule together. And I really, as I read this one and came away so jazzed, I felt like it was a gift from you to me, because it's probably not a book that I would have picked up. So I really, really appreciate it.
Yay. Yes. And I do give it 2 thumbs up and recommend. And he sells millions, but I'm sure he'd still appreciate a note on Amazon. But I thought specifically it's great for individuals. So you can, what I just said a minute ago about uncovering your own hidden potential and vision for your life. Managers of younger professionals that might not know they can have a kind of a vision for their life and career. Educators, there's a whole section we didn't get into about education and the education industry. And then if you're in an industry or in an organization that is struggling for talent, I think this can be a differentiator for leaders for that. So I think this is a great book for how leaders could treat people. And voyagecg.com/leadership books is the landing page for the leadership book of the month. And when you go to that page and scroll down, you will find 2 things in the section for this book for this month. One is a reflection page for you to grab, and the other one is a list of action items. So as I was reading it, I was writing notes about action items I could recommend, and then there's a whole section on them at the end. So if you get the book, there's pages and pages of action items at the end. But I thought, well, I went through the effort of writing my list, so I'll put it out there for everybody. So and you can grab those. You don't have to put your email address in or anything, but if you want to provide your email and join my for Voyage Consulting Group's email list, we have an over 50% readership rate. So it's pretty good email that goes out. You're welcome to sign up for that at the bottom of that page. But you can grab those 2 resources just go get the PDFs right now. So I hope they are of use to you and that they help you on your leadership journey. And thank you, Bret, for sharing the experience today. And I'm so glad we were on the same page for this book, because I would have really not known what to say if you didn't like it.
Changing date next month. So we normally go the 4th Thursday of every month. I'm going to be out of pocket on the 4th, so we've moved the conversation next month up to the 16th. So we'll have a pretty short turnaround, which no problem on our end, of course. But for those of you who are watching live or looking for the broadcast, we will be a week earlier next month.
Yes, thank you so much. So it's October 16th, How Leaders Can Inspire Accountability. And you'll see everything you need about that on the webpage as well. So thank you so much, whoever is if anybody joined us live. And it looks like we do have a comment. Yay, somebody wrote, Edil, thanks, love this book, and hello. So thanks for joining. And if you join later, again, I'll look at the comments and see if I can answer anything that would be needed. So Bret, thank you. Have a great month. I'll see you in 3 weeks.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Take care, everyone.